Last time on The Savior's Sister, we saw Layla kill a grown man in cold blood and take his jewelry. She left his corpse in the fountain as a message to the others. After that, she went and took care of her new boyfriend, who got poisoned very much. But don't worry, because he's here to save her when the other guys are getting creepy. Thank goodness.
Alright, we are making some headway through this chonker. Because the craft is so much better than in friggin' the Ables, this is easier to just read on just my brain can process this level. I have gotten used to, for the most part, it still catches me up sometimes, but I have eventually gotten used to the fact that her pronouns are always capitalized. I still hate it. It's readable. It's a readable book, and I guess if you are one of her fans and you want to read a fan fiction in chunky print form, this is the book for you. We are getting a lot more like hurt comfort fluff in this because Tobias is constantly injured and she is constantly healing him, and so whenever they're together, we're always getting that hurt comfort stuff, and normally I am hurt comfort trash. I absolutely love it. Don't ask me why. But I've realized reading this that it can't just be any old hurt comfort. It has to be with characters I actually care about. And I don't like either of these people. Jenna, you've ruined hurt comfort for me. How dare you? How dare you? Layla and Tobias slept out under the stars. Not together, like just in the vicinity of each other. And now Layla is just like, over the moon. Tee-hee, a boy likes me. My hair is so obnoxious right now, but I don't give a fuck. You know what? I have stopped giving a fuck about my hair in this apocalypse, and I think we should all just stop giving a fuck about our hair. The perfect virgin thing does remind me of a conversation that I've kind of been having just like off and on with other people, discussing the representation of Pippa. I'm coming back to Pippa. And again, we do not know for a fact that she is autistic. I have seen... She does like Q&As, I guess, sometimes, and like I don't follow it, but somebody posted this somewhere. Somebody had been like, can I ship Pippa and Orion? I think they would be good together. And then Jenna's answer was, no, that's disgusting because Pippa has her disability. And naturally, I was like, why is that disgusting? Unless Pippa is 20 years old. So unless Orion like completely takes advantage of her and like sexually assaults her or something, which he wouldn't do because everybody knows that he is the good man, a good man, and in Jenna's world you are either good or bad and nothing in between. Why couldn't she have that? And then I realized it is because Pippa, I think in Jenna's mind, is a child and therefore cannot have adult relationships because we have this very common trope, misconception, dangerous misconception that people with developmental disorders behave like children. And they really don't. People on the autistic spectrum, and the spectrum is huge, and there is not, it's not even like a spectrum where there's one end and the other end. It's a big old circle, and anybody can fall anywhere within it. And even those people who, struggle the most with functioning, maybe they're nonverbal, maybe they just do not communicate well, they might seem to live in their own little world, but even they don't necessarily act like children. Only children act like children. So it's really reductive to say, oh, so-and-so is, 8 years old in their mind. And you can see why. It's because then people begin to think of that person, of that autistic or potentially autistic person, as an 8-year-old when they are not. So you cannot just say, oh, because she has a developmental disability, that she cannot get married, that she cannot be happy, that she isn't an adult. She just has to be more cautious, and the people around her need to help her be more cautious of being taken advantage of, because she might tend to believe the best in people, which is a quality that anyone can have, not just Pippa. Although probably not in Jenna's world. Alright, I'm gonna stop ranting. I have real problems with the way that autistic people can be treated because I know many autistic people, including members of my family, and they range so hugely from my uncle, who is nonverbal and is one of those people who kind of seems to be in his own little world, to other friends and family that I have who, you know, at a glance you could not be like, yes, that person is autistic. So it's a huge range. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Holy shit. All right, let's read this book. See, Layla says that Delphi is beautiful, but she doesn't say it in a way like, so annoyed that Delphi is so beautiful, because Delphi is not a threat romantically. What is the sentence? Tobias wore you out nice and good, I take it. Are we from the South? He wore you out nice and good, didn't he? Sorry to everyone from the South who I am just deeply offended, but what was that sentence? Wow! Wow, these girls are bitches.
Where are the plastics? That one there, that's Karen Smith. She is one of the dumbest girls you will ever meet. That little one, that's Gretchen Wieners.
She's totally rich because her dad invented toaster strudel.
And evil takes a human form in Regina George.
She's the queen bee, the star. Those other two are just her little workers.
The challenge that the guys just did was the torture challenge, and the assassins won it. And that means they get to spend time with Cosma. And at first Layla is like, well, what if they try to kill Cosma or attack Cosma? And then Delphi's like, no skin off our back. She literally says they hurt Cosma. How will we ever go on? I know you don't like her, but like, you're fine with her being left to deadly assassins? So Layla's having a bath, and it says, Nyx dug her sponge deep into Layla's flesh. How? It's a sponge. And of course, we just have the servants again here, so they can just speculate about Layla's love life. Because legitimately, that's all these characters really care about. Does Layla have a man yet? Has she boinked yet? We are the horniest palace in the world! If we eliminated all the scenes where some other woman pokes Layla about having a crush and Layla vehemently denies it, this book would be half the size that it is. Oh, I thought of another reason why it's detrimental to make Layla a sword master as well as everything else. If you make her so very competent, your reader then wonders why she hasn't done something before now. Why doesn't she actually just do a coup, take over? She's got magic and she's got skill. What's holding her back? Pippa also exists to kind of be the comic relief, which is another thing that's not super great. Oh, it was the pig challenge. The pig challenge is over, and we're dealing with the injuries from the pig challenge. You guys know that the pig challenge both broke me and sustains me. The pig challenge was really the moment that I knew, that I understood that I must become the reader of bad books. I was really hoping, though, that we get more pig challenge, like maybe it would be Layla's idea to do the pig challenge or some shit, but no. I really thought that Layla might try to have a hand in more of what was actually happening in the labyrinth, but she really doesn't know anything about the challenges, and then she goes down and deals with the aftermath. I thought that maybe she would be masterminding a few things, trying to get certain challenges or avoid certain challenges. Even if she doesn't like it, she can not like it and still have hands in it. And now we have the challenge where Tobias is supposed to draw Cosma, but he can only accidentally draw Layla. We get another reminder that Layla is teeny tiny, because, you know, a perfect goddess would not be anything except delicate and porcelain. Basically, she's built like me. Is that what you want, Jenna? Is that what you really want? Me? I don't think so. You know what super pale skin is good for? Showing off zits. That's what it's good for. That's all it's good for. All these characters saying things like, oh wow.
Wow.
Oh wow. Definitely words that I would expect to hear in my fantasy book. If Layla doesn't want to be involved with the challenges at all, if Layla you want to keep Layla out of the fucking tournament, then she needs to do something else. She needs to have a stronger through line of what she's doing. She needs to have a better plan. Because right now there isn't a strong through line of what Layla is doing behind the scenes while Tobias is in the tournament. The tournament was a really, you know, for better or worse, it was a strong through line. What was Tobias doing? He was in the tournament. That was a constant. What is Layla doing? Fuck if I know. Aimlessly trying to figure out, I mean, she knows who's going to kill her, so, like, what's left to figure out? She knows who's going to do it. She knows when it's going to happen. What's left? And the stuff that she did find out, she didn't really do any sleuthing. She just kind of, like, conveniently murdered the right guys. And that's how she gets the answer to everything. There's no variety in it. So if Layla had a really solid idea of what she needed and also a solid idea of how to get that, then I wouldn't mind so much that she doesn't care what's going on with the tournament. But as it is, we are glossing over all the stuff that she's doing outside of Tobias stuff. Now that she's with Tobias, it's just like, and then she went to sleep, and then she went to see Tobias, and then she did one little thing, and then she went to see Tobias, and like Tobias is her focus now, and honestly it's just not a strong enough through line. Tobias, meanwhile, is being Mr. Perfect Boyfriend and always saying the right thing and just making her all dewy. I don't ship it. Tobias is bland and Layla is a psychopath, and I don't ship it. Here it is again. Layla has ash on her face from being in the labyrinth, and she's wiping it off. And it says, Layla dug her cloak into her face. Can't you just say she wiped her face with her cloak, or she rubbed at her cheeks with her cloak, or something? Dug into her face, conjuring up this image for me of her just like taking the cloak and digging it actually into her skin. Cosma is being a perfectly reasonable person. And then Layla's like, well, what about your reward with the beasts? And Cosma's like, what reward? So I guess that's supposed to end the chapter on a dun-dun, because Cosma did not meet with the beasts, which probably means that they met with Layla's dad. But like, who gives a fuck, because we already know they work for him, so it's not really a proper dun-dun. But that's that chapter, and now I'm gonna go. My mom is coming over pretty soon. We're gonna watch the Great British Baking Program and not think about the horniest kingdom in the land. You guys are cute. So cute. Alright, we are back. It is Halloween as I'm filming this, and it occurs to me that Layla is totally a slasher villain, so she's coming for you. She can teleport. She has a knife. Chapter 10 is called The Gift. He's trying to draw Cosma. He keeps drawing her, and then she's gonna see it and be like, oh, that bland sad boy really does love me. Layla is hanging out with Basement Dad and talking about how the assassins were treated by Dickus.
I have a very great friend in Rome called Bigus Dickus.
And she's like, did they mention a healer? Because my dad doesn't know that a healer exists, which just brings up, once again, that Brontes is paying so little attention to any of this. He has not noticed that Layla has been dressing up as a healer and frequently going down. I think you're pretty safe. Your dad just doesn't seem to pay much attention. Somehow, her dad also hasn't realized that Layla has substituted Cosma in there. Like, I don't know what Layla's so worried about. She can easily bamboozle this man quite clearly. My hair is just doing whatever the fuck. What is Layla expected to do throughout her days when she's not, like, when the tournament isn't happening? What does Layla do? What does an ordinary day look like for her? Because she's talking about how, like, her dad hasn't figured her out, even though she's not being as cautious as she should be, yada yada yada, basically what I just said. But, like, what does he expect her to be doing during the day? Layla has to go be at the gift presentation ceremony, and it is very convenient that her dad isn't at this.
You're kidding, what a crazy random happenstance.
Here we run into another problem that I've noticed. When is Layla allowed to command people? Because sometimes she does and sometimes she doesn't. And the book kind of tries to throw in there like, well, you can't command people when it comes to the tournament, but I'm pretty sure she has. I just don't understand when she is to be obeyed in all things as their god queen and when she is not. And I legitimately don't understand why the sovereign has more power than the savior. Like, I get that she was a kid for a while and he was a placeholder, but I think it comes down to not knowing anything about Thessan, really. What are its people like? All we get is this palace. Maybe it's the whole continent. Maybe it's the whole planet. I don't even completely understand Thessan itself. It's just sort of a place where the savior blesses it. But with no idea what the people are like, their various beliefs, their education levels, what the average Thessan is like, it's really hard to judge whether Layla should be more in charge or less in charge, whether she should be more worried about a coup or less worried about a coup, because, like, how much support would she have as their literal god queen? The world building is just not there. I mean, no surprise, I'm pretty sure Jenna has outright said that she hates world building and keeps her world building very light on purpose, but when you do that, you create a problem where the reader starts to not be able to understand why things are happening a certain way. At least for me, I don't know. Even the rules of the tournament are so vague so that you can just make up whatever you want at any given time. Romulus is like, you must know there are systems in place solely for occurrences such as these. And Layla says, systems? What systems? And I don't think we're going to be told what the systems are. And that's awfully convenient, so we don't have to learn any of the actual rules, because I don't think there are any.
Now, just to be clear, I know some of you may be like, Julian, you're kind of bad at world building too. To which I say, yes, I agree with you. I am kind of bad at world building. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to go at it through my favorite part, which is like culture building is the angle I'm trying to come at it from. I'm trying to grow, I'm trying to get better, but I will be the first to tell you that, yeah, I agree. The world building in my book is not masterful. It's not top-notch. But I like to think that it at least exists, unlike in this book.
Now every time Pippa speaks, I don't find it cute, I find it cringy. Again, Flynn, unfairly maligned. Because Tobias didn't succeed in this gift challenge, because all he could draw was Layla, so he didn't bring a painting at all. Everybody is supposed to stand and nominate someone they think is not in the tournament. Obviously everyone's supposed to nominate Tobias, but good old Flynn, who is a tiny man who would definitely be folded in half by these big scary brutes, he has the balls to nominate someone else besides Tobias. So, like, why the fuck does Flynn get such a bad rap? Oh yeah, this is Tobias. They're leading up to Tobias's death match in the arena with, like, all the mirrors and shit. But Delphi takes Layla to go see all of Tobias's pretty pictures of her, so she knows how much Tobias loves her with all his heart. Layla reads porn scrolls. She's all like, I'm so innocent. But she reads porn and masturbates. What is a penis? I have no idea. I'm really not quite sure why everyone was given auras, that Layla was given the ability to see auras. But it's just kind of like an extra way for the author to be like, yep, they're really feeling this thing. Jenna is fine at getting across that her characters are feeling something. So having this extra layer of, yes, they're definitely feeling that so far, is unnecessary and clunky and just sort of piled on top. She is added to this book that doesn't need to be here. Right alongside the mothers, right alongside friggin' Asher, right alongside that other servant character who was acting as a mother who has disappeared and we have not seen her since the beginning of the book. Stop adding so many things just for the sake of adding them. They have to matter to the story. If I had read this book before reading the other one, I would think that Tobias has absolutely no personality. He has very little in the first book, but there is something. But in this one, he is just cardboard. He is cardboard perfect boyfriend guy. We are reminded again that her name means darkness. Oh my fucking gosh, stop.
Stop it.
Alright, we finally get to the end of this chapter. Just like 3 pages, well 2 pages, I exaggerate, of Layla verbally wanking off Tobias about how amazing his drawing skills are. Which again comes off as an author just being like, isn't my character amazing? As I've mentioned before, it is a fine line you have to walk, especially in a romance where you do want characters to verbally tell each other what they feel about each other. But if you go too heavy, it just seems like you, the author, are trying to convince somebody that your character is awesome. And one way to go too far is to have like 2 whole pages of a character just praising another character. There's a fly in here and it keeps wanting to land on me, and I'm absolutely not okay with that. Hi. Hello. Welcome back. We're here. Chapter 11. The Blessing. The ferrets are loose, and I think Avi has a candy wrapper? Are they gonna have a training session too? A training session before he went to fight the guy? Then she just gave him magic so he could win? This book is so needlessly mean to Flynn. Meeting an expected Tobias and a fumbling Flynn in the labyrinth. How is he fumbling? Why is he fumbling? He's fumbled nothing so far. Now Flynn wants to share something that is important to him. He got to spend some time with Cosma, and he wants to talk about it. And they're both like, shut up, Flynn. When, for all he knows, he has literally spent time with the god queen of their realm. If I had a friend who'd done that, I'd be like, yeah, give me the deets. And we're supposed to all be like, well, Toby wouldn't want Flynn as a friend. Flynn would be a bad friend. No. Toby is a bad friend. He is constantly sullen and standoffish. He mocks his friends in his head. When Flynn wants to be his ally, Toby completely dismisses him because he's just not good enough for Tobias, I guess. If Toby wasn't the main character of a book, he would be so screwed by his inability to make any allies. Abby, no, you shouldn't have that. Abby got her paws on a little mini candy bar, and I don't know how or where, but it was fortunately a mostly coconut one. I thought she was just playing with the wrapper. Anyway, mostly coconut, not enough chocolate to hurt her. Fun fact though, ferrets, like cats and dogs, are vulnerable to chocolate. Poor Flynn! He's like talking to Layla, and why are you helping him anyhow? Not that I'm against it, I'm rather fond of the poor bastard myself. He likes Toby. He would be a good and loyal friend. And Toby's just like, no, you're not cool enough for me. Get out of here, Flynn. I'll be honest, I'm gonna skim the training scene, blah blah blah, picking swords, blah blah blah. None of it matters because he uses magic. So Layla keeps being like, Tobias, you're creative and that'll help you on the battlefield, but I am an artist, and were you to give me real weapons, not foam ones, the fact that I can draw would not help me on the battlefield. And then of course we have the classic, Flynn makes fun of Layla and then Layla gets to beat him up. We have the line about how Flynn has never been to a village, and I don't understand these people. She's giving him bad advice. She says that his body should be squarely facing his opponent when he only has one sword. He's gonna get stabbed that way. You want to angle your body to make yourself the least amount vulnerable that you can. That's why you always see fencers very angled. So if you only got the one sword, put that sword between you and the enemy, and then try to make yourself as small of a target as possible. Flat, roll that shoulder back, get flat, essentially. We're pretty much getting exactly the lines that we got in the first book. Like, I remember these lines because they were bad. Like I mentioned in the previous one, in case you forgot, it sounds like she's giving him video game instructions. You block for protection. Dodging Antonius moves will be your primary objective. Press B to dodge. I was really hoping, because eventually Layla gets the idea, just sit on Flynn's shoulders so they look like the big scary giant that Tobias will have to fight. And of course, because Tobias won't hit a girl. We all know that there's no underwear in Thessan, so Layla's vag is right up against the back of Flynn's neck. And I was hoping they were going to mention that, when it was from her point of view, but they are carefully avoiding mentioning that. And then she gets off of Flynn's shoulders again, and then there's no reason for Flynn to be there again. Layla is just the coolest one, okay?
Turn down for what?
At some point, Flynn retreated to the wall, so Layla fought with the power of two, resolute in her intention. She's just so cool that even though she's getting tired and sore, when Flynn gets tired, Layla just fights like two people then. Okay, training session over. Now we're gonna get on to some stuff we haven't seen, hopefully. So Layla has to go witness Toby's death battle, but her dad is coming too, for the first time ever, because even though it's his tournament, he doesn't really seem to care about what's happening in it. Oh, never mind. Never mind. They're finding plot reasons for him to just not be there. Wow. Layla gets to choose one of the competitions, and so she's the one responsible for the card game challenge. So let's take a minute to look at this from Cosma's point of view. I know we're not supposed to, but let's take a minute. Cosma, we don't really know that much about her past, but she's one of the Savior's sisters. What we do know about the Savior's sisters is that they are not really treated like sisters. Delphi definitely acts like a prime body servant for Layla in a lot of ways. She's kind of a right-hand woman, but she's clearly subordinate to Layla. Layla gives her orders. If Layla says jump, Delphi says how high. Pippa is like Layla's pet. When Layla wants somebody to coo over, to be her friend, to be cute and hold hands, there's Pippa. Then there's Cosma. What is Cosma's role? Maybe she doesn't really have one. Layla already has a right-hand man and a pet. So here's Cosma, essentially a servant. Again, we don't know anything about her past or where she came from or whether she was stolen from a loving family. Delphi's past is also like high-key horrifying, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about Cosma. All her life, she has been told, you are second best and you are subordinate to this other woman. But as she grows up very beautiful, classically beautiful. Men want her. And she starts to realize that having sex with men gives her the feeling of power that she's never had in her life because she's always second fiddle to this kind of bitchy other girl. Now this other girl, her sister, her master, we don't know that any of the sisters are paid, so they are essentially slaves, as far as I know. They certainly have to bend to whatever Layla's whim happens to be at any given moment. Layla finally turns to her sister and is like, I need you to pretend to be me. Wear all of the jewels that you've never been allowed to wear because you are less than me. Wear all of the fine clothes that you've never been allowed to wear because you are less than me. Get all of the attention from men that you have never been allowed to get because you are less than me. If you were Cosma, if I were Cosma, wouldn't you relish that a little bit? Right now they are in Layla's special dressing room and Cosma is admiring the fine jewelry that, again, she has never been allowed to have because she is less than Layla and has probably never been allowed to forget it her entire life. But we're supposed to scorn her for wanting the pretty things, for wanting the good life that she has seen literally dangled in front of her for her entire life. Why should we hate this girl? If you think that Cosma is messed up, it's fucking no wonder she wound up as messed up as she is, because this is her life. Also, Cosma has not betrayed Layla, and is, at least that we know of, and she's been doing her best to portray the savior. So I just don't understand why we're supposed to hate her. Oh, because her priorities aren't straight, because sometimes she stops to admire men, which is only okay when Layla does it. Oh yeah, this is the part where Layla corrupts Toby with her darkness, because he was always such a good man. She's like, you have to kill, give in to the darkness and murder this other man. He's like, Brontes isn't watching? And she's like, oh yeah, no he's not. And I'm like, yep, he decided not to watch in a throwaway line. So now we find out the mystery of why she used clay the first time she blessed Tobias. It was so that the clay could hide her glowing handprints. The seats around the arena, she calls them pews. I don't think they're called pews when it's in an arena. So I just looked up pew on like dictionary.com or whatever, and all of the definitions mention a church or a congregation or a group of worshipers. Now maybe Jenna is trying to say that these people worship death, and so they're called pews. I think that's giving her a lot more credit than perhaps she deserves. I just think that she called them pews in the last book, and whether that's right or not, she then feels she needs to call them pews in this one. But I don't think that's what pews are. Okay, it took me a really long time to understand what was happening. They brought up the dreaded mirrors in the arena, as you know, and Layla is able to see people in mirrors, apparently. I thought she could only see her mirror mummies, but she can also see Tobias's dad and Milo watching over him, I guess, in the mirrors. Why? And Cosma is doing a great job of covering for the fact that she's not really the savior. But Layla is just pissed because she told Cosma not to speak, and that bitch is daring to speak. Luckily, Wimbledon is just like too dumb to argue because he knows that Cosma isn't Layla, but he just stands there and gapes at her, so lucky. So I thought it would be fun to revisit the challenges from Layla's point of view, but it's not. It's actually really boring to read. So I do wish she would take a bit more interest in the challenges, maybe give us a little overview or something, but reading the blow-by-blow of a fight that we got a blow-by-blow of in the last book, just not very fun. And of course, because Tobias is the best, why would we want a hero who wasn't absolutely the best? Tobias had more than learned to maneuver her blessing. He had mastered it, using the magic to disarm his opponent, to carve him with his short sword. He mastered it. Why would we want a boring character who, like, doesn't master things on his first try? It also implies that the men in the mirrors, so Tobias's dad and friend, did something, because they, like, slump over exhausted. Although why dead people would be exhausted, I don't know. And it's not clear what they did. But maybe there was a reason for them to be there. Maybe. Alright, that's the end of the chapter. Toby wins, woohoo, he's the very best, like no one ever was. And we're gonna have to deal with the fact that Cosma is not the savior and Wimbledon knows it, but I'm sure it'll be easily dismissed. Maybe she'll just threaten Wimbledon until he complies with her. That sounds like a very Layla move. Maybe she'll steal his kid. Does he have a kid? She could steal his kid. Alright guys, I'll see you next chapter.
Well, hello, traveler. Why don't you sit right down over there and I'll tell you about some of the best patrons in the whole world, like Patrick, Anne Sophie, Callison, Ray, Artemis, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Irene, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, and Lennox. Why, I bet you've never heard of a better group of patrons in your whole life.
I have a very great friend in Rome called Biggest Dickus. Silence! What is all this insolence? You will find yourself in gladiator school very quickly with rotten behavior like that.
Can I go now, sir?
Wait till Biggest Dickus hears of this.